I'm Hubert, and today on Clubit TV we are going to be looking at a game called Gloom of Kilforth. It is written by Tristan Hall and published by All or Nothing Productions. It is a 1 to 4 cooperative or competitive dungeon crawl where you go through this fantasy land called Kilforth, trying to vanquish the evil that is bringing the land around you into gloom. You have an adventure, or sort of say a quest that you have to try to complete, and then take on the bad guys at the end. So how does this game play? Well, I'll explain to you that in a second, and at the end of this video I'll tell you what I thought of the game. This is only a brief overview. To play Gloom of Kilforth, set up the board in a 5x5 grid with Sprawl City in the middle. Place the 4 encounter decks next to the board along with the knight, plot and the 4 reward decks. You will also need to select the appropriate number of ancients. Also place the skill deck close by. Each player selects a class and race. They take the appropriate standee and place it on the Sprawl City card. They also receive their quest cards, 4 life, action, fate and enemy tokens, as well as 1 gold. The character with the highest sneak, i.e. green attribute, goes first. Each turn the players perform various actions. They can be move, clear obstacles, draw an encounter card, hide from enemies, attempt the encounter card, regain health, upgrade their character by playing a card from their hand to the table, buy or sell cards, or level up their characters by completing the required goals by discarding cards with the relevant keywords from their hand or table. Each of these costs 1 action. To win combat encounters, roll the number of dice according to the sum of the red fight values. 5s and 6s are successes. The number of successes needs to equal or be greater than the value printed on the encounter card. Study is the purple attribute. This is required to cast spells, but not exclusively. The player's total needs to be as high as that of the card for this to be possible. You may also win strangers to your side by using the blue attribute called influence. You win using the same mechanism as fight. If you fail, the stranger becomes an enemy and attacks you. In some cases, you can attempt to sneak past them using the green attribute. If you succeed in a combat test, you can gain gold or a token from the loot bag. The player can also keep the encounter card in their hand as a rumour, or discard this card and draw another one from the appropriate reward deck. A player will need to travel to the location on this card to be able to add it as a power-up. Tokens from the loot bag can be more gold, free actions you can perform during your turn, or shortcuts to location types. The number of actions you can perform during a turn is equal to your current health. If your health is reduced to 0, you return to Sprawl City, lose all your gold and have to discard a card from your hand or in front of you. Any encounter cards remain until they are resolved. Players need to gain cards with specific keywords on them that match those on their quest cards. When they do, they can use an action and discard 5 gold to level up and move on to the next quest. Players take it in turn to take actions. When all of the players have taken their turns, the day ends and the night phase begins. A night card is drawn and 1 location is flipped over to its gloom side. If a player ends their day here, they lose 1 health. Sometimes, if a certain type of location falls into gloom, the ancient places a plot card over it. The players may have to overcome this to win the game. When a player completes or fails their final quest, they can confront 1 or more of the ancients depending on whether you are playing in the co-op or competitive mode of the game. In the former, there is 1 ancient per player and all of them need to be defeated for the players to win. In competitive mode, there is just 1 and the first player to do this wins the game. In co-op mode, the heroes lose if day 25 ends and the ancients are not defeated. So, what do I think about this game, Gloom of Kilforth? Well, just to give you a bit of a background, I went to Aircon 4 and that was in 2018, and I saw this game on the table and was completely fascinated by it. It's absolutely gorgeous art. And then later on in the year I bumped into the halls again, and they were nice enough to put me onto their reviewers list, and this copy arrived about a month ago, and I've been reviewing it ever since. First of all, I would say that this is a game that I've really looked forward to getting my paws on and to playing. So a lot of this is filtered through that this is a game that a much anticipated game. So let's look at the components first. As I've already said, this game is just gorgeous throughout. The art is just amazing. It's the first thing that caught my eye. Playing this game, you never feel like you'll get bored of looking at the artwork. It's just very, very, very beautiful. It's bright where it needs to be, and it's sinister when necessary. The cards themselves that all the art is printed, well, most of the art is printed on, is a really good stock. It's not linear finish, but it's not flimsy in any way at all. The dice are marbled, and they're made of plastic, and they're quite weighty and chunky, and I really like that. You might need to get some more towards the end of the game, depending on whether you want to roll. If you've got two people playing, you might want your own set of dice, so you might need to bring in some more, but it's not really a problem. Most of the tokens are made out of wood. Well, they are made out of wood, and you get some or cardboard. The player aids are good. You will need the player aids when you're playing this game. There's lots of terms and lots of stuff going on, and you will need that to help you a lot, especially in the early few games. You can also buy a set called Pimp My Gloom, and this is like a mini expansion that just gives you extra bits, including a foldable player aid. There is one in the base box, but there's only one, and if you're playing multiple player, you will need the others, but you get a lot more in the Pimp My Gloom expansion. The rulebook is a bit long, and the layout isn't always that helpful. I sometimes found myself reading down when I should be reading across, and it just would have required maybe just like a simple little line going across the page just to stop you from doing that. And I'm somebody who suffers from dyslexia, so things that make it harder for you to read a rule book don't really, really grates with me. Also, there's an index at the back that helps you try to find certain keywords. We often found it was difficult to actually find the keyword when you were looking for it, but there you go. The rulebook is not the strongest part of this game. In terms of components, the thing that really sucked for me was the inserts. It's really, really poor. It's just a piece of card that's been folded to fit into the box, and with a game that has numerous decks of cards that you all need to place them out in specific locations around the board, you really do need an insert that when you take the game out, you just pull the deck out and then place it onto the table. It just makes setup time and pack down time so much shorter and quicker, and that's something that's very important for me in the game. I don't want to sort of have to bag everything, and if I'm not bagging it, the cards will just get mixed up, it's being ported around, and then you've got all this problem of sorting them all out before you start. And I just wish that they would put a better insert. Don't cut corners. Inserts are so important. But apart from that, the rest of the components are great. I love them. In terms of gameplay, this game is a little bit complicated for what it is. It's got tons of little fiddly rules. You've got to do this and do that, loads of symbology that you have to refer to the player aids for all the time. And you kind of think, oh, what's this and what's that? And then when you first start playing this game, it can get very, very annoying. If you buy this game, if you've bought it, then you will probably persevere with it because you've spent the money. Or you could just decide that you're just going to stick it on eBay and be shot of it. But if you're somebody who's being taught this game, sometimes just trying to work out all the symbology on it can be a bit difficult, even with the player aid. So you find this pretty annoying. And the tragic thing about it is that when this game boils down to simply going to a location, flipping a card over, seeing what this card does, and then rolling dice to see if you can overcome the obstacle. And that's pretty much it. That is, in essence, what you're doing every single day of this game. But why make it more complicated? I don't know. Another thing I found extremely annoying about this game is that the number of turns that you can take during each day, or during your turn, should I say, is down to the number of hit points that you have. So if you've been hurt in a fight, you might have retreated from it, but you don't have any turns left to heal that particular day. You have to wait overnight to heal, and sometimes it can get really frustrating because in the early part of the game, you are going to die quite a lot. When I first played this game with one of my friends, he died pretty much every single turn and got extremely fed up with this game and just said, look, are you sure you're reading the rules right? And I'm saying, well, I'll go away and read them again. So he didn't want to play the game anymore, and we'd only played like 3 or 4 rounds. So that's not a good sign for a game, of any game, that after 3 or 4 rounds, people are just like going, I don't want to play this. I've just fed up of dying. And you lose resources, you lose your gold, which isn't a big thing at the beginning of the game, but you do lose the cards that you got in your hand, or you might have worked really hard to get this card, and then the next turn you lose it, and it's part of what you need to do to complete the next part of your mission. So this game feels unnecessarily convoluted, has extremely steep learning curve. Plus, in the early stages of learning to play this game, you keep going back to the rulebook, or we did. We kept going back to the rulebook, kind of check this, check that, check this, check that, and it just slows the game down like anything. It also has, for some strange reason, they chose to use terms like deeds. So what are deeds? They're just a free action, so why not just call them a free action? Don't know, just make games simpler. It does take up a lot of table space too, especially if you're using the pimp version where you get longer cards for the locations. But the cards that come with the original game is fine with the base game. You don't have to get larger cards. But once you've actually overcome this steep learning curve and all these little niggles, the game's actually good and it flows well. The gloom mechanism, I love that gloom mechanism. As the board begins to shrink because more and more locations are falling into gloom, and you're sitting there thinking like, I can't finish my turn here, because if I do, I'm going to lose a hit point. And sometimes, especially if you have lost a few already, you can't afford to finish in a location. So you're always thinking about moving, but as soon as you move, you then trigger another event. So you've got to be very, very careful about where you're going. So I like that part of the game. Replayability, well, the map's always going to change. You've got a vast selection of different races and their particular classes that you can play. So this game's got a great replayability. The baddies are pretty much the same. There's only like 4 of them, but I can assume that there may be more in the future. Don't know. You can also play co-op versus competitive mode. Competitive mode is quicker because you only have 1 boss monster, and you have for playing co-op, there's 1 boss monster per player. So replayability in this game is good. I would say the only real hindrance to this game is the setup time is a huge put off. Sometimes there's a game that I've got that I very rarely play because it takes so long to set up, and I think twice about it before choosing this game. To think, do I really have time to set this game up and then pack it away afterwards? And I'm going to have that same feeling about Gloom of Kilforth. Also, teaching it, do I really want to keep teaching this to people, because it's got a steep learning curve, and I'm like going to have to explain everything to people 2 or 3 times. So yeah, but otherwise, if you've got seasoned players, this is a great game to play. Theme wise, it's okay, generic fantasy. There is no great lore around this place, there's no backstory, but many games are like that. Like I said, the gloom aspect of it is something I really like. Overall, the conclusions to playing this game is, actually I quite like this game. It reminds me of another game that I picked up and I played a while back called One Deck Dungeon, and it has that similar kind of feel where you've got these classes of characters and you can power them up. But One Deck Dungeon is far quicker. It's a much slicker game. It's less complicated. This game feels far more like, I wouldn't say bloated, but it feels much bigger and grander. It's certainly a lot prettier. But you can play One Deck Dungeon in, I don't know, 20 minutes. You're going to die a lot, but that's not a problem with the game because it's difficult, and and it's just fun. But if you die, it's quite easy to reset it and try again and go through it. But the question is, for me, is, am I going to play One Deck Dungeon? I'm going to play this one. One I can set up very quickly, and one takes ages, and one that's very streamlined, and one that isn't. It's a difficult choice, isn't it? I would like to see Gloom streamlined, a sort of second implementation of it, some of the mechanisms just cleaned up a little bit, no special terms, an easier way of gaining powers. It seems very difficult to get your character to actually power up in a significant way that you don't feel like you lose every single battle and that you're not dying every other battle. So perhaps maybe having a free power up at the start, or maybe 2, I don't know. I think the steep learning curve in this game could be a put off for many, but if you're willing to persevere with that, I think you'll like this game. It is interesting. As you're going along and you begin to complete your adventures and gain keywords, and then it does have that. It does feel like you're getting somewhere, and you will enjoy this game. Well, at least I did once I actually got to grips with it. So, in conclusion to my conclusions, this game's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I actually like it once I got past the steep learning curve. If you have any comments, if you played Gloom of Kilforth, and you have any comments, leave them in the bit below, and just let me know what you think. Okay, that's it. See you later, guys.